Welcome back to another episode of the Vigo Show, episode 2. I feel like we're now even more official. Episode 2, Ben?
Dude, I can't believe how well the first one came out.
I'm very impressed with the first one, and more knowledge for you guys today. How to pitch a product, what to include in a pitch, and how to really make it stand out. Millions of people out there are pitching content. They're wanting to get their message across to various audiences. They're, have this idea, but how to get that idea from the growth stage to actually getting it out there for people to watch is a big deal, and it's not easy. And for that, we actually have a special guest, James Flint. 20 years of experience in various parts of television, being able to pitch content, working for networks A&E, E, MTV, VH1.
Woo. Okay, I'm done.
Lots of experience, lots to share with us today.
I do, yeah. It's definitely been an interesting career. A lot of it has involved pitching material,
Has it changed significantly over the past 20 years?
I think what you bring to the table has changed a little bit about the complete package, but it really is about characters, worlds, formats. It really is sort of like trying to find that next thing that people will gravitate towards or be hooked on and want to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's the beginning of, people are always pitching content. I mean, it's a daily thing, especially here in Los Angeles, I'm sure. People have ideas. It's easy to have ideas.
It is, and everyone thinks their ideas are great. And by the way, some of them are. I bet you everyone in this room has an idea. It's getting out there and trying to be noticed and be ahead of the pack. Or try to cut through the fray and try to be noticed and try to get your product out there. I think is the hardest part, especially now.
No, absolutely. If you're new to the show, Michael Clouse, Ben Ganz. Ben Ganz ran digital media for this small show American Idol, works for Laugh Out Loud, Kevin Hart's network, and we're here to just be able to help give you some information behind the scenes, maybe some information that you're seeing. We help break it down more of entertainment and how to be able to really get content out there. These guys, content experts, they create content every single day. You're creating hours and hours of content every single day, Ben.
Yeah, and I always feel so lucky that we're this new digital production team, but that we have James Flint. James Flint is a TV veteran. He came up with reality TV just like we're coming up with the internet. And what a lot of the internet's missing in my mind is the old school classic producing. And James is an insanely talented showrunner, sizzle maker, trailer maker, and I think it'll be super fun to pick his brain.
Okay.
Well, I want to pick your brain because how did you guys meet? How was this even an introduction?
Well, one of my friends at Idol, one night he said, hey, we come help me shoot something. It's at a birthday party. Oh, I said, sure, no problem. And so we go to this house in the valley, and it was a birthday party, and it turns out it was actually a porn star birthday party.
As they, the best ones are.
Because James was at the time involved in the company, and they were pitching a show about a porn star who had retired from porn and is now selling hot dogs out of a truck.
Porn star selling wieners. Well, that
12-inch wieners, by the way.
12-inch footlongs.
Yep, off a truck with their name on it. It was brilliant.
Spoiler alert! How did that work out?
Actually, we had a lot of interest in it. The problem was, and with traditional television, a lot of people had an issue with middle America wrapping their head or being invested in a porn star. No matter how you slice it, there was no porn in the show. There was no extra scenes, that would get you interested. It was literally about a girl trying to reinvent herself using her name and her previous career. And you were supposed to feel for her, and she was trying to make all this stuff happen, and people just could not get over the fact that she was searchable as a previous porn star. People just couldn't get over. People could not. It was not one of those things you could just talk about openly, and I think that was the problem with the show.
Was it being pitched to traditional TV?
At that point, yes.
Okay. Do you think that type of a show would succeed more now? Obviously, with the number of outlets, you'd get it somewhere.
I do. I think you need more than just a porn star trying to redeem herself. A redemption story. I think what you need now is something tied into that. I'm not quite sure what that is.
But that kicked off our relationship. I was his editor, he was my EP, and I had never cut. Well, I'd cut one sizzle before. That's it. When I was trying to sell my show about Matt Gerald, Night Access, that took me 2 years, and he really took me under his wing and really showed me the ropes of sizzles and trailers. And I want to try to bring that to the show right now.
And you're talking about, that's what you think a lot of traditional media now, and new age media, I guess, traditional of what is out there, and growing, is missing is that experience in that, main television feel. Expand upon that.
I mean, I'll let James speak to producing, but like, you just have these kids and they've never had any experience. They didn't come up being a PA, an intern, an AC, an AP, a segment producer, showrunner. They're just like, hey, here's a camera, we're gonna make it up. And like, that's its own form of storytelling, and there's definitely a spot for that. But I think there's also a room for just old school, classic storytelling that's been proven, millions, billions of dollars generated, and James is...
Well, listen, I'm a big fan of beginning, middle, and end. I sound like a broken record around the office, but I really, truly believe that you need to set up a reason why to watch. I want to give you that reason, and then I want to give an ending to it that says that either you can form your own conclusion, you can walk away, or at least I tied it up where you can either love it or hate it. I feel like that's missing in a lot of online social media, either shows or in pitching in general.
Break it down for us. Going in 15 to 20 years ago to a pitch meeting, what was that like?
Well,
what were people coming in with?
It was way different, because back then it was the Wild West of reality TV. Like, we had nothing like it before. That was the beginning of like Survivor, and I did a show called Worst Case Scenario, which allowed me to become a director. I always wanted to become a director in TV, and it's funny I did it this way. I mean, I'm not directing like sitcoms and dramas. I started directing reality TV. Back then, sky's the limit. We had millions of dollars. I had like 50 cameras, and we could just like do stuff. At the end of the day, though, the reason why it worked was because, I don't know if you know, Worst Case Scenario was based off a book. It was a really popular book.
Yep.
It was like a huge bestseller. So we had a show that people already knew about. So all we had to do was recreate things, whether you believed it or not, that you could survive jumping out of an airplane without a parachute, right? Fine. But it was a big deal in the book. So we would do stuff like that, and we would try to recreate that, sometimes safely, sometimes not, but to kind of give everyone sort of like an idea, or at least some sort of like that could relate to the book. And it was on TBS, produced by Columbia TriStar.
Yep.
And it made me a director for life, and definitely it got me into directing and producing and show running, and what I learned from that was you always need something that people are going to gravitate towards. Back then, for like 5 or 6 years, you could have an awesome, outrageous talent, like an Ozzy Osbourne, or like a Gene Simmons. You could have like crazy stuff, even Kardashians, all that stuff, crazy people. Where you can now, back then, you could like devise a show around it. You can design something for them, and then like networks or production companies or even showrunners would say, this is what we could do with them, because they're willing to do it. They're willing to go through the motions. Nowadays, I think anybody can come to the room with crazy talent, but that's not enough. You need like, which is what I learned 20 years ago. You need a world, a story, or something that people can really relate to, and it's your talent that is your conduit between both of those worlds. And I think that's the success of a pitch today.
And it's interesting, and that's something I think we talked about in episode 1, was at the end of the day, you have to have good content no matter what. And I think as that still hasn't changed.
Well, what does that mean to you, though? What does good content mean to you?
Exactly.
Outrageous personality, a format that you can follow. What does good content mean?
What does it mean to you? That's what I'm interested in. To you?
I think you need to know your buyer. I think you need to know, but good content is something that, first of all, you always, in my opinion, which I feel like a lot of people fail at, is that you need to really truly believe in what you're selling. Honestly, I've been in the room and thought I was selling like the next fucking best show on the planet, and I got no's everywhere. I'm like, no, we don't get it, or this is stupid, or whatever the case is. You just got to take it with thick skin and move on. But if I went into that room like kind of half-assed it, or I didn't really truly believe in it, or I was on a wing and a prayer, or I thought maybe you might like something out of it, I think you're done, because at the end of the day, it's about really truly believing that you have something that other people might want. And that's sometimes half the battle, to be honest with you.
The networks are getting pitch stuff constantly. How long are those pitch meetings? You go in, do you have 30 minutes, an hour, 10 minutes?
10 minutes, depending on your relationship. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, sometimes 15 minutes. Sometimes it takes you a month to even get on the books, because you are one out of a million people that are doing this. You have more opportunity if you have relationships and you are in business with those people. But honestly, there are several agencies out there and every agency has people just like myself and Ben and all of us in this room that want to go off and pitch something. Those relationships get you in before somebody else. But at the end of the day, they see literally all day long, 12 hours a day, one tape after another, one pitch, one talent coming in the room, one thing they have to write, and they also have mandates. They have to go through all this stuff. They're exhausted by January 2nd.
Can we? Let's start it back. Some of these people listening, maybe they're not represented by an agency. So say I'm Joe from down the street, and my grocery store is the best. What do I do with that?
I think everyone in this town has some sort of connection. So what I would recommend doing is before you get an agent or you try to, knock on the door, nobody will accept you. And for the most part, like Viacom's, like the A&E networks, the NBCUs, you can't go into a room without representation. Even if you have, honestly, you have some major talent.
It's not what you know, it's who you know. I mean,
Exactly.
still at the end of the day.
But that's a good question, though, Ben, because I always say this business is who you know. I think you buddy up against somebody in a bar that is a showrunner, someone who has a connection, because showrunners or producers, the people that have the connections or the representation, are always looking for people's ideas. So they'll option that from you, and that's how you get in the door and you keep your name alive.
Yeah, so pro tip, that's when you go to some of the smaller reality production companies, and it's much easier to get a meeting there, and you can produce it to the James Flints of those companies in the development departments. Mark Burnett, I don't know, all three.
Will they try to buy you out, or how do you keep control? Is that something where they will buy a project, buy a script, or they want you partly involved, not to spend as much money on it?
I think it depends on your relationship. I think you really need to watch out if you're going to come to me for the first time. I'm not saying I'm a bad guy or anything, and you don't know me from Adam, and you give me a great idea, and I'm going to do some sort of a deal with you, some sort of deal memo, and I'm going to go forward with all my connections, and it moves forward. First of all, you don't know how much if you're in it for the money, you don't know how much you're going to get. So you might have some sort of a deal in between both of you that says we'll share a percentage of the profits. Now, most cases, it's with another production company. So, the profits start to dwindle as you go along. Personally, I tell everyone that I've ever partnered with, and Ben and I have worked on some of these shows, I don't care about the money. What you need is that first credit. What you need is that created by, which is a rare credit to come by now.
Exactly.
The original concept, executive producer, even producer, because essentially you had nothing before that. So what you need is a show, in my opinion, whether it was even sold or not. I just went through this with a good friend of mine, and Ben and I worked one of the last reels we did together before we ventured into Vigo. Good friend of mine, a well-known director of photography in the business. We've known each other for years. We all have friends in common. Came to me one night and said, "Here, I want to buy you breakfast or dinner." Pitched me a couple of stories, and I said, "You know what? I like one of those. Actually, I really do like it. I can't say I can do anything for you, but I gave her some advice. If you can get me some of this on tape, I might actually consider it." She did it, which is, by the way, most people wouldn't have done it because I think there's a little laziness out there.
Talk
she did
is
it,
cheap.
right? Which impressed me. I actually liked it because she actually put her money where her mouth was. I optioned it from her and basically said, by that time I'd become a development executive, so I removed myself from the project. I said, I'll give you everything, but don't be thinking you're going to make any money off it, but what I will give you is an executive producer credit. And whether your show gets picked up or not, every single network around town, every single person that knows me is going to know your name, whether they picked it up or not. And it ended up being that show was picked up for a pilot. It was picked up at BET, actually.
Wow.
And yep, it was an awesome tape. And also that tape cemented I think Ben and I, our friendship forever, because he's a really talented person. When I first met you, I thought, you know what? There's very few people that actually have like a vision and the ability to execute that. And Ben doesn't need to be an editor. It doesn't need to be whatever. I feel like anyone can be doing that. It's someone who actually gets it and can actually like translate that. That show never
Which
went
I
anywhere.
had no idea I got, by the way.
No, I think, but I've told
At
you
the
that many
time,
times.
no, you did,
Yeah.
but I was like, dude, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, and you know what? Listen, there was a way that we had to do things at one point in time, and he listened. We argued. We fought back. We fought for each other, and literally we made some really good material. I really hope someday people get to see it. That tape went, and by the time I left that company to go into, in my opinion, social media, there was a pilot produced, and that girl made nothing. But what she did have was 1 year, in my opinion, to say I'm an executive producer of a show, of a pilot at BET, and everyone knew about it. And I said, go pitch your next project, because it's your next project that's going to get you somewhere. And that's kind of like what I tell everybody.
I remember someone telling me, you're not going to get rich off your first show on reality TV.
Nope.
Like, I remember that, because when I was trying to sell my night access show, and they're like, you're not going to get rich. I was like, it is not about that. I could care less. It's just like, hey, I created this.
Is that an attitude that you think is hard for a lot of people to realize? You think, oh, this is my baby, this is the dream, there's the lotto ticket.
It's really hard. I mean, and listen, I can speak from that too. Like how I became a showrunner is I actually had to start pitching stuff. I was a director, and since worst case scenario, my agency, which back then was APA, way back in the day, I was basically, in order for me to kind of keep up with television, I was being forced into actually pitching material. So what I did is I pitched material, and then when the material, either other people's material or mine, when that material was picked up, because I was a director, they asked me to make the pilots. And when those pilots were made is when they were looking for a series showrunner. And I was the natural shoe-in for that because I was their part of the development process. That's how I became a showrunner. Once you become a showrunner,
I didn't even know that.
You have to pitch. And so to this day, I still direct my pilots. It's just one of those things like, you know what, if you're going to hire me to execute some sort of vision, there's a reason why you hire me or a showrunner or Ben, because your first thing out there should be your vision, or anyone could have done it.
And I don't think people understand this process. This process is long. Like, we're talking months, years,
Yep.
literally years. Like, I have an idea. Great. It takes a while to make the sizzle. It depends if you can cut it yourself. You can afford, you can spend $10, $20, $30,000 on just the sizzle. And then what do we have next? Presentation.
Yeah, or first of all, your sizzle has to be like accepted.
Right.
So
Accepted by
people you're pitching it to.
Okay.
So that's not only networks; it's production companies. Whoever is trying to help you get to the next level, they have their input as well, which we see in the socials. We see everyone has an input. So at the very beginning, though, it's still your idea. You have to present what you want out there. Eventually, your idea, your sizzle, your presentation, whatever it ends up being, especially a pilot, turns into other people's ideas. So you're kind of holding on to sort of what it is, but you're kind of riding that sort of collaboration train. And I think that is a really hard concept for people to grasp, all while you're not making any money.
Exactly, and it's either hundreds and hundreds of hours on a good sizzle, or you're paying someone to do it. So either way, you're invested. It's not easy. It's not, hey, I have a great idea for two kids to go down the street and have a game show. You walk into the network door, like, that doesn't happen. And that's why, before the internet, before anything, like, it was really hard to get your idea out there.
Well, I want to inspire anyone listening and not make it seem like it's impossible.
We're talking in the old
to get
ways.
out there.
Yeah,
we're talking how it was.
Yeah, so talking, fast forward to today, obviously there's so many more outlets out there for good and bad. I feel it's, easier to get content on because I think we all look around sometimes and like, how did that get picked up? But is it, twice as easy, 3 times as easy to get content out there now?
No, because it's still just as hard at these major networks. So your Netflixes, just because they're not ABC, CBS, all these places are still just as hard. There's no question about it. Sure, if you want to do it yourself, anyone can go do it. But to hit these big ones, HBO is still big. And this is an argument we have all the time, right?
Really?
These networks, they're still big, and it's still very hard to get your stuff on that. Sure, if you want to go make it yourself, you want to put on YouTube, like, congrats. Hell yeah, go for it.
So wait, the argument, are you saying it's not as, are you on the same side of this argument, or is there...
Well, it all depends on how you look at it. Again, Ben can speak to this more than I can. I think if you're going to put a personality on YouTube and you're going to cultivate that and let it grow through grassroots, sort of like people finding out about it, or people like even behind the scenes trying to get people to throw some money at it, or you're trying to get numbers, to make marketing goals, all that kind of stuff. If you want to cultivate that, for sure, you're still not making any money during that process. Yeah. Again, I don't think it's all about the money until it is. But if you want to go to TV is even more harder now. But at least with TV, if you go with that direction first, right? They have their other avenues. They have their feet in all the different internet-based type stuff. I don't think it's a way. I don't think you can go the other way around. I don't think you can go internet and then go to TV. I think it's like you go to the people that are in charge of, like, the NBCUs, which have multiple networks, the Showtime networks, the Viacoms, the Disneys, right? You go to all them, which all have their offshoots in multiple different forms, and you try to chase the dollar. You try to chase where it might be a good fit, and you try to figure it out that way. Or you do the long game, which is what I've been experiencing with, ever since I started working with Ben with Vigo. You have people that are personalities that are making money. I hear some podcasts and vlogs making millions of dollars a year. Okay, fine. That's rare in my opinion, but it doesn't happen overnight. So you're basically waiting for that game to happen. I'm a little more proactive. I think people should be more proactive. If you really, really have an idea, first of all, you can't sit on ideas unless they're age-old, tested, like they can happen anywhere. I feel like every idea that's relevant has to happen now. It won't be relevant 2 years from now. So you have to go out there and go for it. And I wouldn't want to limit yourself to just TV, or just trying to get on YouTube and see what people think.
And I have a prediction. And so you're going to have the networks. If you want to be on Netflix, you're going to have to go through this process. But I think that big brands are going to start acting as networks. And what I mean by that is they're going to be buying content. You know?
Name some brands of what you're talking about. Are you talking
so
about...
like Topgolf.
Okay.
Did you see what
So
they did? They put out
you're saying.
an American Idol type show. It was a competition reality show about like a battle of the bands, and they paid for the entire production. They paid for all the publicity. They're running huge campaigns on Facebook, Instagram, all over the place. I saw it through an ad. I didn't learn about it.
And it's on Topgolf's page?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a full 22-minute episode. It's crazy.
Or like Katy Perry, where she did the 36 hours live, where she was just basically, she was in a fishbowl. A friend of mine directed that, and I got to learn a little bit more about it. That was completely paid for by the label, and the label, with the whole reason for that was that she has an album coming out, and it was more like basically get Katy invested in the world on their own time, and whether you liked it or not, I have my own thoughts. That sort of was paid for by a label, which essentially is a market, is a brand. It
sounds like from what you're talking about with companies, talking about what you're talking about with Katy Perry, that are these shows and this content, is it simply marketing now? Is that a huge play for people of you're using content simply as marketing?
Well, all networks are, and they'll all tell you this, all they are is marketers. All they do is sell time to brands. That's literally the only point, because they sell eyeballs to brands, correct?
Well, I'll say, and you can disagree with me, okay, because I think it's a healthy argument. I think people just don't give away money. There has to be a reason for people to sponsor things. You're just not going to pay for a TV show just because you want to do it, because you like a certain person. You need either someone to, in return, buy something from that brand, to be aware of something. I think that kind of stuff is really cheap advertising, in my opinion. But it's only a quarter of it, in my opinion.
But it's less about actually making money off the individual content. It's about making money off what will come from the content. Like you're talking about podcasts. Podcasts are free.
I'm talking about anything.
No, but I'm saying,
what is the point of a network? Okay, your ABC, all they do is they're a middleman. They deliver eyeballs to brands. That is why they exist. That is how they make all their money. The content that they produce and fund is what gets that.
I'd say cable's the same way too. Cable's the same way.
But with that specifically, that content is making money from ads. In terms of like the Topgolf thing, Topgolf is doing that to get their name out there so that you'll spend money on Topgolf.
So what do they do? They just eliminated the middleman.
Well, I would almost say that they created that middleman to get to the end product. Like with Katy Perry, they created that content to be able to sell the album.
Yeah, but they took away the network, which takes a huge cut in upcharges. Instead of a 30-second spot, now they had a 22-minute spot, but now arguably for the same price.
But now they didn't get rid of the middleman. They just now own the middleman. They didn't cut it out. They're just now that middleman is what I'm saying.
Well, I think what you're referring to, you guys should go back to the 50s where Gillette used to sponsor shows.
Exactly.
I think
exactly.
But that, by the way, that never went away. It's actually more out there now than it ever has been since the 50s, where any product, Johnson & Johnson, Red Bull, there's a million of them, right? They literally are maybe even looking for content, something that can get eyeballs on their brand. But at the end of the day, you can't deny this. They want people to buy the Red Bull. They want people to buy the Lysol, right, and the paper napkins. They want people to do that, and that's the age-old model, in my opinion, of entertainment in a broad sense.
Yeah, well, it's like you talk about podcasting. Those who are making several $100,000 or $1 million. Adam Carolla. Adam Carolla, you get the podcast for free, but in turn, here I'm going to publicize my book. I'm going to publicize this, and that's where the money.
Yep.
So,
which is why Adam Carolla was on VH1, which is why he was on K-Rock. K-Rock, same thing. Music, radio industry, same thing. They're just mini networks that are owned by huge corporations that rely on advertising dollars to be able to put that content on the air to become aware. The people that they advertise, on those radio stations or those TV stations, want you in turn to go buy a condom or a Coca Cola or some new fad, right?
Yeah.
Like a drone. They want you to do that, and they're willing to pay for that. And as long as K-Rock, for example, or ABC or VH1 have the eyeballs enough to justify the price.
James, you'll know this. Obviously, all these little networks popping up, whether networks, companies, brands,
outlets. Yeah.
How much is that hurting traditional TV?
It depends. Ben and I talk about this a lot. I do believe there's a lot of people out there that they're stuck in their sort of traditional way of watching things. I might even be one of them. I do believe that I'm not the first person, right, to go out and get my entertainment, like actively go out and go to YouTube and be like, oh my God, what do I need to watch on YouTube right now? I don't, what am I going to do, right? I'm not saying anything against YouTube. It's just not me, right? And I'm not that old. My parents.
Are you in the demo?
Of YouTube?
No, the advertising demo.
Still, yes.
I just want to clarify it for our people.
I'm not going to reveal any ages here.
Yeah.
I am. It'd be better if I was female, I guess. So
what's the advertising demo for people who don't know? 18 to
49.
49. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, Ben, I'm in the demo.
I just wanted everyone to know.
Okay. Are you in the demo?
Sadly.
Okay. Sadly, we're both not female, which is why they want co-viewership, because co-viewership not only brings in eyeballs, but it brings in the people that actually truly historically buy products. And what I'm trying to say is that there's baby boomers out there, nothing against baby boomers, but they're largest generation since, I believe since the whatever the generation's called of our great grandparents, right? The great generation, whatever it is. They're the largest people. They're still the largest people that buy things because they have surplus money, and they are still live and kicking and healthy and well to watch something that they want to watch, whether it be traditional TV, going to a movie, or even now maybe seeing it because they're all on Facebook or something like that. They're still the people that, in my opinion, somewhat control the reason why we have this leftover or this kind of hanging on sort of way of watching things. Like, I would have told you 2 years ago, cable's done. It's gone. Forget it. It's like there's too many battles, there's too many negotiations, there's too many people buying up things, and people are cord cutting left and right. Until I'd say last year. I think that there's going to be the more of the bigger companies that buy all these things up. There's only, in my opinion, 4 or 5 companies worldwide that own all the channels and how you see stuff. That means internet, direct pipeline access, all that stuff. There's only a few, and they're all buying each other up. This last 6 months, we've all seen it. They're literally spending billions of dollars to buy up the control of that. And it's those people, in my opinion, that are still trying to get to the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, even the millennials that have what's it called, dispensable income, right? And literally, they're trying to get those people to do that and to buy it. They're not going anywhere.
But
I don't think you're going to see.
Why are we seeing a bidding war? I'm curious why we're seeing a bidding right now for Fox.
Well, I'm gonna go to my grave saying this. Content is king. I believe no matter what happens, even if we start telepathically giving me television channels and ways of watching stuff in my mind, which by the way could happen tomorrow. Okay, I'm not a sci-fi nerd or anything, but listen, I've seen advancements that are crazy. Right. At the end of the day, you need to put something in my mind. And I believe that Vigo, Ben and I, and especially my belief is that you can't change that no matter what you do. No matter how interactive it gets, no matter how VR it gets, no matter what happens, you can't change the fact that you need to provide content.
But so what's so good?
They're buying up libraries. They're buying up huge amounts of libraries, like Viacom. Viacom owns Paramount. Paramount has a huge library, oldest studio in the world, and they have a huge library that they happen to still own. You have NBC, with Universal. You have all these people. They're buying up these libraries that appeal to other people other than us. They also have all these networks, like MTV, VH1. They have E. They have Bravo. They have these networks that have been around enough. They're embedded in everyone's minds. They own those catalogs. They own all those shows outright. When you sell a show to a network, that's the day you lose that show. It becomes theirs forever. That intellectual property is theirs because they paid for it, and it's that property that Comcast wants, or AT&T wants, or Verizon wants. They want that property because they're going to repurpose it, or they're going to re-show it, or they're going to re-envision it somehow, instead of having to pay for you on a gamble to try to figure out what that is.
Here's the thing, Flint. Making good content is hard, right? And they, like 20th Century Fox,
it fluctuates a lot, by the way.
They have the resources to make it. I don't care like what I hate when is TV dead, is it OTT? They're the same things. It's these big large content aggregators that are going to be put. Sure, there's always room for your YouTube channels and your vlogs and all that, and I think that they're complement. They're not exclusive. It's all part of the menu of content out there. But these studios know how to make films, episodic TV. Why? Producing.
Also, production companies do too. You can't discount them, and they work for all those networks. I think the people that have the most concentrated effort or concentrated group of people that are smart, they're innovative, they're trendsetters. The people that know how to do stuff and also kind of follow it. They try to keep up on it, and they somehow have access to that world and want to present it and know how to present it. Are the people that I think hold the key of what content is in the future.
We've gotten really large scale, obviously. Talking about the major players in the game, the 4 or 5, and gotten big. Of they know how to create content, and they can make this vast content. I want to get back to anyone who has an idea and wants to create content and pitching that, and what do they need. And we talked about, you might have 10 minutes, 15 minutes in a room.
Yeah. How
do you prepare for that, and what do you need to have for that 10, 15 minutes?
Why don't we do it like this? Why don't you give your big network, and then if you want to go down that route, James guides you. If you want to do it on your own, I'll guide you. So you first.
Okay, which version am I?
You're pitching the networks.
So you're pitching the big network.
You go to Netflix.
Okay, if you're going to go to Netflix, by the way, which I believe operates a lot like a network, by the way. It's not a fledgling little online platform. I mean, I
think they're exactly like a network. How are they any different?
They have a budget. They accept pitches. They do development. They do pitching. They secure deals with talent. They're literally no different.
They have tens of millions of subscribers, so they're definitely
They do.
network.
So did HBO, by the way.
Yep.
And HBO, I believe, is in a rut right now, but they're going to turn themselves around. My prediction, everyone. But they really are no different than like an NBC or an ABC or a CBS or Fox. Those are networks with a lot of money as well. The only difference is the model. One's a subscription based, and the other one is a advertising marketing based.
Yep.
And that's the only difference. Other than maybe you can say affiliates pay for a little bit of the networks. That's really, in my opinion, the only difference. So they have, the more subscriber growth, the more opportunity they have to spend all that money. Netflix has other reasons for doing things, but whatever. If you were to go into Netflix, for example, right, you still, by the way, and I believe this is still true as of last year, you still can't go to Netflix, by the way, and sell a project. But if I was to go to Netflix, because I have relationships with people, everyone moves around this business, we've all grown up together. I can call someone up, right? Or I can have my agent call up somebody and say, like, I have an idea, will you accept it? Or by the way, another way of doing it is you go out to these little general meetings and they kind of tell you what they want. They kind of tell you what they're kind of wanting. They're like they're yearning for talent or different worlds or access to different things.
What do you mean by general meetings?
Well, it's called a general meeting, so it's a general, right? So you basically, your agent or a friend calls you in and says, hey, I want to set you up with a general with Netflix. Netflix is looking for, they'll go in there and Netflix will say, hey, James, good to see you again. Hey, Ben, what's up? It's been a long time. What are you up to? Hey, by the way, you got anything, kind of cooking? Good to see you again. By the way, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for a companion to this show, or we're looking for a world that is like, since right now everyone wants authenticity, everyone wants it to be real. So we want like our new serial. We want something that we can give our viewers what they want, because we've realized that the most viewed stuff on Netflix, that because we have algorithms and ways of tracking it, people want real crime stories. They want real like sort of juicy sort of real stuff, not that recreated. We kind of like did it for sensationalism, right? And so I'll take that information and be like, hey, that's a really good idea. I'll toss it around. I might have a few ideas, right? So I'll go out and I'll kind of like look around, see what kind of worlds I have access to, or I'll like start looking, calling up friends, or I'll start like going into sort of like what I can get access to, and I'll put together something, if I can, of an idea of like a particular serial killer I might want to follow, or some sort of crime investigation team, or a world of people that clean up like autopsies or do autopsies in really weird, strange towns. People that you don't know about, but you might be interested in the characters of the world, because I know there's an interest in the topic.
Yep.
So what I'll do is I'll go out there, I'll secure the talent, I'll film the world. Right? Either I hire people, companies to help me out, or I'll do it myself. I'll put together a tape that really represents like what I think Netflix is looking for.
Which is coming in another episode, by the way.
Yep. And what I'll do is I'll go back and be like, hey, good to see you again. I really listened to what you said, and it's so good to see you again. How's the family? We should go out for a drink sometime. Oh, by the way, I have a tape that you might be interested in. And that's how it works. And it's that one moment when you press play on that tape, no matter what happens, or your little leave behind,
No, you're on that cell phone, you're shoving it. I've done that so many times. Hey, you have to watch this. I'm sitting right here.
Exactly. Once that happens, that's your one moment with all that work to see if that's what they're looking for. Or
and that tape better be fucking good.
Yep. And it really is. That's where it comes down to. I think the whole reason of this podcast is that you honestly have no more than 3 minutes, in my opinion, to actually sell all your hard work.
So the tape is 3 minutes?
Yeah, no more than 3 minutes.
Oh, really? I think you just showed me a 5-minute one. First draft.
That was a casting tape.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Is 3 minutes good, or is it shorter the better? If you
Listen,
can get it in a minute, concise.
They're on there. 3 minutes is just a general term. Let me tell you, 3 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
It's a
very
really long
long
time.
time.
But really hard to keep it that short too.
It is. It is. Honestly, like I always feel like, oh, can it be 3.5, 4 minutes, 5 minutes? Oh, man, 5 minutes is amazing. 3 minutes. The reason why they say 3 minutes is because people have this sort of like attention span where you're one out of a million things by January 2nd that they've seen. Even though you're good friends, even though you might be presenting something that only you have access to, there are probably 100 other people that are going to come in the next week. They're going to show the same thing, and they all have these little things that they're doing. They're running networks. They have their own mandates. It's so much pressure in that system. After 3 minutes, they're going to look down at their iPhone. They're going to be distracted, and you really had lost their attention, and then they're gonna be like, hey, this is great, what was that about? Like, you just literally lose their attention.
Yep.
You have literally, in my opinion, the first minute to hook them. You have another minute to really dive into what the story is, and then if they still are paying attention after 2 minutes, you have one more minute to basically give them a reason why to buy it.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it, honestly, no matter what you say, yeah, they'll pass it around, they'll pass it up because you're friends, they'll like really think about it. Unless they walk out of that room and say, I've got to go tell someone about it right now, it's really, honestly, you're done until the next network.
I want to talk about the sizzle so bad. That's all I want to talk about.
Let's talk about it.
Well, and I think the tricks that we like to use. So if you're gonna watch a 3-minute tape over and over again, how are you gonna stand up? Our music cues change every 4 seconds. Our sound effects are huge. Our graphics are all over the place. Like it's like the equivalent of like a giant action movie of blowing shit up. We use like every editing technique in the book.
I like to call it emotion, and I love music. I know Ben likes music. I'm a big music person. I just think music really makes you. It really sets the tone of something. But like Ben said, graphics. I like graphics. I know in your last podcast you guys talked about kinetic typography, right? Which is words that sort of represent. Yeah, which words that represent the emotion, right? I think there's some really good stuff out there. The reason why I like to use that kind of stuff is that someone may be saying it in scene. Heck, they might even be on camera saying it, but unless you read it at the same time, it really doesn't have that impact. And what I try to do is emphasize what they are actually saying. And for the most part, when you're doing like a reality sort of sizzle reel, the stuff that they're saying that's so important, they're not even on camera saying it. It just happens to be, you're cutting to some B-roll, you're cutting to something else. So you're missing the point that they said, I have a past that's really shady and I don't want my wife to find out about it. Well, you missed that because the next thing on camera they're saying is, I'm on my way to go see my wife and see if I can go take her out to dinner. Who cares about that part, even though it's probably important to the sizzle reel?
Yeah.
What you missed was that person said, I have a shady past, I'm keeping something, and as a viewer, you might be interested in what I have to say. The only way you can do it is either put them on camera or you use words and music to I usually drop out music. I usually drop it out and let them say the line all by itself, and then I put a word right in front of there. It says, I don't want her to know. Like that right there in words with no music, and then some music kind of coming in after it says, I told you to pay attention. And I think that's really important in a sizzle reel. It has these it goes up and down like this. And it just can't be flat with a piece of music. I see that all the time, Ben.
Yes.
People just put a piece of music underneath it, and it's like they think
Every
that's
other that comes in here, that's the first thing.
Yep.
No, one clip, one piece of music.
Right, and it's like it may be the best music, might be the most popular thing,
Yeah.
it might be your favorite track, it might be the top #1 song, right? 3 minutes of that song, which is pretty much what music is, right? Underneath your sensational up and down roller coaster of a bunch of footage you put together, just kind of ruins it. It really is just sort of a bed of music, and I feel like I see that all the time. You need that emotion, and that's just one of the techniques for emotion.
Do people argue and say, oh, but I don't want there to be too much distraction. I want people to focus on the content and not be focused on the flash. Does anyone come in and argue that and say that?
Well, I think, though, there's always a time for flash. I think flash is a word that's misused. I think it's techniques that may be flashy that make you pay attention to what the importance is.
Don't be boring.
Yep, you can't be boring.
I hate boring everything.
Yeah, it's you can either have something that's sort of mediocre, but you can make it into something through edit, through music, through graphics, all that stuff to really kind of get the point.
Welcome to reality TV.
Yep, exactly. Reality TV is really, honestly, what pioneered it.
So boring.
I mean, the term Frankenbite, by the way, came from reality TV. And I don't know if people must know what that is by now, but it's literally taking words and sentences and you're kind of re-putting them into the sentence they should have said or what you want them to say.
Yeah.
And it's really a good technique because I feel like a lot of Frankenbiting is used for taking out ums and sort of like stumbling through a sentence. It's not all like I'm going to put 5 words together and make you say something different. But I also as a producer, I know what you're trying to say, but you don't necessarily succinctly say that. So I'm now going to reword you in a way that makes you at least come across what you wanted to say, but it's not what you said.
But you could be like, tonight I saw a good movie, but the popcorn was bad, and then you could just do, tonight I saw a bad movie.
Yeah.
And the popcorn was good. You can do anything. It's pretty fucked up.
It is. I think that 3 minutes, you have to do a lot of things to make it come across. Because in real life, you probably filmed all day long. I mean, we just did a project and we filmed all day long. 4 45-minute or 50-minute sessions of 2 people talking, right? And you're like, how in the world am I going to turn that into 3 minutes, right? Or how am I going to turn it into something other than a pilot? I mean, heck, most shows don't even have that much footage. And I'm like, how do we do that? And it's really about taking it down, using music, using editorial techniques, using how you kind of portray it. And when I got it down to 5 minutes, which is only a casting tape in my opinion, it's not really a sizzle reel, but I kind of like put everything, I make everything kind of into a sizzle reel. But it's all about a character. And what he does, he shows these moments that kind of give you an idea of what it would be like if you filmed for a year with a person.
So what would you say the structure is to a sizzle reel? How do you open it?
Depends.
What do you do?
Okay.
Like I can think of some that you've made. It's you have a cold open, right?
Yep.
And then show title, and then you start to introduce the characters, and you let a reality bite play out, and if it's drama, you let them fight, and then boom, a big flashy outro.
Yeah, I think you always want to start off with what you're watching. So I think that what you said, the show open, the main title, some people won't put that in sizzles. I like doing it because it sets up, I have to tell you how to watch the reel. And that kind of apply that same thing in the shows that I produce in the TV series, is that in the very beginning, which is why pilots are really difficult, because usually pilots turn into the first episode. I have to teach you how to watch the rest of the series. I can't assume that you're going to know what to look for, what to be invested in, and how to watch it. So just like in a sizzle reel, I have to teach you in 30 seconds or so what you're watching and how to watch it. And that is a sort of like how you begin it. Then either you introduce the title or sort of like kind of like what it is, and then you follow what it is I told you to watch. So it's either dramatic, it's either fighting, it's either a love story, it's either some sort of format of an expedition, whatever it is. That middle part is how I told you what to look out for, and why you should watch it. Towards the middle of that, there needs to be a transition that says why you want to buy it and because anyone can make a really awesome sizzle reel and a pilot. It's another thing to say you can make a series. So at the very end, I basically want to tell you that this was all cool. I got you hooked. Now I'm going to tell you visually why you want to pick up this thing as a series.
Like what would a reason be?
That you want to introduce multiple storylines, right? You want to introduce this character is unstable. You want to introduce that there's more access to this world and more beats, that we can produce. And you want to kind of tease that. It says that we gave you like a small little example of what a taste of what is to come. And then at the very end of it, hopefully you like it or you hate it. I actually like it both ways, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Please hate it, because we don't have to waste our time. At the very end, towards the last 45 seconds or 30 seconds, I give you some sort of like redemption, possible storylines, possible other things that you didn't know were coming, and to give you an idea that says, hey, you might want to follow this character around, or you might be interested in this world, or you might be interested in hearing more, because it's one thing to say that I came in and say this is what my world is, this is what my character should be. The network executives, the interesting thing about pitching is that through this sort of development process, they'll come up with sort of what they're interested in and what they kind of want to see, or they'll tailor it to sort of like what people might want to watch. And if you can't give them that to begin with, they can't come up with it. And so you kind of want to give them a taste of what it is. I was talking to Ben the other day. I said, my reels, I don't lock you into one thing, because if I lock you into one thing, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot when they say no. I lock you into something that maybe has several options, and that's kind of what I do in the end of a sizzle reel, is give you that option.
So how do you drive this thing? I know a technique that we've used before is VO. Do you recommend VO?
I like
what
VO.
is that? How do you structure it? Tell me about that.
I like VO when there's a format. When a character can't speak on their own, or I think VO should only be used to drive a format.
VO being voiceover.
Yep, voiceover. Yep.
Don't know.
I'm a big fan of cards and text, but at the end of the day, if you can just listen to it, VO shouldn't be what the character is going to do, or anything that has anything to do with their personality. A VO should be what the format of the show is. So a format can be in a reality show. it basically is from day to day. We're going to see a reality star or a real person, do the dirtiest jobs in America. We're going to see them try to find love by dating multiple people. We're going to see an underground world, that's going to involve these steps. That's what you use VO for.
That is solid gold advice, by the way.
100%. And I've seen it used incorrectly, where they try to tell the story of the character because either the character couldn't support it on their own.
I was guilty of that. I used to set up my characters to be like, meet Ben. He's really quirky, and his favorite color is blue, and this. And no, like you'd be like, you're like deep in a world down south. There's this guy Ben, and then you show that they're quirky. You show that they love blue couches.
Yep, and you can compensate for a character that doesn't deliver you anything with OTFs, which are on-the-fly interviews, or if you're from Britain, ITM, so in the moment, right? It's the same thing. And by the way, that's changed a lot too. Back in the day, 20 years ago, we used to take, like we're filming right now, we used to swing the camera over and here, come over and talk about it real quickly. And that used to be an OTF on the fly. Literally, don't cut the camera. Let's go interview your real thoughts right now. What's going on in your mind? Now it's a storytelling device of basically produced way of saying, hey, what's going on right now? Why'd you say that? What do you think your next steps are? And then we'll watch you in scene do it. And it really is kind of interesting how that
and is that like what people are seeing on The Bachelor and Bachelorette, where they're in a side room and doing that kind of stuff? That's what you're referring to.
Yep. Yeah, and then there's also the main interview, which is like The Bachelor, for example. It'd be the ones where they're interviewing in that same background for the same thing. I don't know if The Bachelor actually does OTFs. Do they?
I don't know. Maybe this. I think this could be its own episode of how to produce reality TV.
So. We talked about, that's 3 minutes of the 10-minute. The other, are you making a verbal pitch? Are you answering questions?
Yeah, I do believe that it's one thing to come in there with a solid piece of talent. So another thing to come in there with a world that no one's ever seen. But you essentially, in my opinion, and this is the approach I do to my television shows, and also the reels that I produce and the sizzle reels and the pilots, is that I kind of become the world or the person that I'm pitching. So I'm excited about it. I'm very knowledgeable about it. I don't care if you didn't even like it. I'm telling you right now, this is incredible, and I'm living it as if I'm the person that's in the deep south somewhere, shoveling, whatever, trying to look for gold. Like, I'm that guy, and it's that passion that comes across, like, that gets people's attention. And I'm pitching basically after they watch it. So I'll go in there, I'll pitch it verbally. I usually try to save it for the reel, but I try to set it up. They watch it. It's over really quickly because it's 3 minutes. It's over. I do not hand over. Is another mistake people make. I do not hand over any kind of written material until the very end. So I keep that in my pocket or whatever. I don't want them looking at it as they're pitching it. And what that written material is more of a succinct way of explaining, like, maybe what the storylines might be, a little more background information on the character you just watched, a little bit more about the format and how it would play out through a series arc. I don't want them looking at that, because then they're not watching the reel. They're not watching the sizzle reel. So I leave all that to the very end. So they watch it, we discuss it, they ask questions, they're excited or they're not. I'm very passionate about it, and at the very end I say, you know what, good to see you again. Hey, let's go have a couple of beers with the wife and kids, and I leave behind a thought out deck. Whether that's an electronic presentation, like a PowerPoint or some sort of like whatever kind of, thing, or mine are mostly written with pictures and explanations and descriptions and all that. Something that they can think about along with the reel when they're talking about their pitching it up the ladder to see if people are interested.
I would honestly say, in order of importance, it's sizzle, the drinks after. Like, those are easily, in my mind, on the same page. Like, this town, I'm telling you, it is all about going out and mingling and saying what's up. And, even it's like, hey, you want to go hit the gym, it's like, you want to go do this. It's all about just being friends. Everyone's working with their friends in TV, right?
That's how you get in the door. That's how you get out of the door.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, everyone is friends, and all their agents are friends. It's a small world, but it's not. And actually, there's a lot of work for a lot of people. It's just people are really scared to pick things up. So it's really now important to have something that people want. I don't think you have to have the most incredible idea on the planet that's like, oh my God, I've searched my whole life for 20 years to come up with something you've never seen before. That's cool. That's not a good way of going about doing it. I think you need is you see something that is a niche, or you want to piggyback on something, or you feel like this is something you really, really like that people might like themselves, and you go out there and pitch it. And the more you do that, the more of a possibility you'll get something picked up.
Did we hit on the important things to hit in the pitch? The world, the characters, what else?
The why.
What does
There has
that
to be a
mean?
why. I think there always has to be a why.
Yeah.
You know what? That person could be the most raunchiest, foul-mouthed, craziest character on the planet, and all you have to do is show 3 minutes of that. I still want to know why. I want to know why that, other than us in this room, people want to watch it. Because at the end of the day, you
You've
can't
been asking
produce...
about why people want to watch this podcast too all day.
Yeah, I do. I question a lot of things just because I want to know why. If I know why, then I can be invested or not. I want that opportunity. It's really important for me is to know why. Why do I want to watch this world or this character? Who cares that it's really awesome and it's underground and it's like sensational? It's great.
There's a lot of exciting
Yeah.
things out there. But
Well, so
how do you separate yourself?
hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
I have a question. Let's name some. What are the big shows right now? The Kardashians. Why does anyone watch the Kardashians? What do you think that pitch went like?
Oh, I was part of that actually.
Well,
You
do
know that?
tell. I did not.
Yeah, I was hired by VH1 to with another producer to spend 4 days with the Kardashians before E picked it up, and it was my job.
Best 4 days of your life, I imagine.
Actually, it was pretty tame, to be honest with you. This is when Kim had her sex tape out, and she was denying it.
Okay.
So it was around that time, and myself and another producer were hired to basically spend 4 days, which I've done with a lot of people, like Tom Sizemore, Danny Bonaducci. I've done it with a bunch of celebrities to see if hired by the networks to see if there's a viable TV show there. And what I do, and my Tom Sizemore story is amazing. What I do, I did TI too. It started off the TI franchise. It was my
I know
presentation that started that whole thing off, and I loved it. It was a really awesome thing. When I was there, I thought they were the most boring people on the planet. I really did. I actually liked, but you know what I'm saying? It's like they were like, other than the sex tape, which I thought was really interesting, she tried to deny because I think Paris Hilton was the first one before that.
believe so.
Yep, and then it was what's her name before then? She was adamantly had a campaign to actually say deny, and I was interested in a little bit of that because she was really young. Her mom was like a little bit sort of like kind of protective of her. I went to see the stores in Calabasas. What they're called, I can't remember the names of them, to see sort of like what Chloe and Kim had. Dash is what they
Dash,
are.
yeah.
The Dash stores, and I kind of like the fact that those girls were millionaires, actually worth making $1 million a year when I met them. So I thought that was more interesting than the reality of this. I thought Bruce actually was pretty incredible. Bruce was a motivational speaker, and he commanded the meetings. He commanded the room. He was the one that was like in charge of that dynasty. It's interesting how it turned out.
He really got
Yep.
quiet, pushed to the side in the whole story.
And if you remember the second season, I believe, or was the first season, it was about the girls were trying to transform him into like, instead of a dud, into like more of like the super dad. And that's when it all began, the popularity started to begin. Anyway, 4 days later, I'm kind of like, here's my ideas, here's the thing. No one knew at all. Actually, I didn't even know that E had already made a bid on it. It was a bidding war between VH1 and E. And like literally, they won it out. And the rest is history, you know?
So in that case, are you trying to pitch angles for that? You see it and you're like, here's how it could go, here's how it could go.
Yeah.
Or are you giving your thoughts and saying, yes or no, I don't think this is a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, they hire a producer like me to go in there to say, okay, what is the world like for real? What can we possibly do with it? We have characters. VH1 is known for having characters, right? BT, E, they're character based, right? What can we do with that? What are the potential storylines? What kind of access do we really have? And put together a tape. So these are all filmed. I film them all, every single one of them, and I put together, a little longer, like 5 to 7 minutes of like what my 4 days was like. Again, the Tom Sizemore one was the best ever. But literally, they make a decision off of that because they want to be in business with that talent. If they like it, they'll make a deal with that talent. I get paid either way, and then whether I get asked to work on the series or not doesn't matter. I'm there to basically be a development consultant for them and say, from my experience, this is what people might want to watch. So I'm being hired to represent what people might want to see.
Did you think it would be the major success that it is today?
Absolutely no way.
Did anyone?
Did anyone? Exactly. I mean, that's a true story. Did anyone really think that? I think that's all because of marketing. It's what people wanted to gravitate towards or make fun of. It was the work that the girls did on their own, I think, is a really big key factor. I think there was a lot of effort and a lot of power plays to make that work. They're not the only, reality show to do that, but,
And you have to evolve. You can come in with, this is what we're thinking, but that show evolved over the years. It did, various relationships, different storylines, and that's important.
Yep. I can't go in there saying I wouldn't watch it. It's just not my job. My job is to say, here's what I think people would want to watch.
Producing. That's producing in a nutshell.
It is.
What are the whys of some other shows though? Like, take me in the room of like pitching The Bachelor. Let's name some big shows on TV, and because that's a really interesting point. What's the why of The Bachelor?
Those are format shows. So a lot of those shows are taken from other countries. So the interesting thing about network shows, especially game shows, is it's really rare that an American born produced show comes from here. It comes from some other format.
Really?
In the last decade, especially last decade, networks they need the numbers to be viable. Other people, basically other bodies, warm bodies, to be interested in the same thing, and they want to try to bring that over to the U.S. and try to, in my opinion, they always do it better in the U.S. I feel like we do everything better.
American Idol.
Yep, Dancing with the Stars. I saw that tape.
Big Brother.
Yep, all of them.
The Office.
I saw the tape, exactly The Office. Though some people say The Office.
No, much better American.
I agree with you, by the way.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
me too.
I saw the tape of Dancing with the Stars, and it was literally watching a PBS, novella, from 1965.
Wow.
Really?
That's what it looked like, and that's what. Now look at Dancing with the Stars. But people, I saw it. I was like, oh wow, like this is going to be. I said this should be on what did I say, CBS? I can't remember what it was. This should be somewhere else. And sure enough, I forgot the cardinal rule in my own head that not that it was my decision whether it came here or not. I just happened to be lucky enough to see the original tape, and I was like, no one's gonna watch this. This is like it was literally announced like, okay, and now dancers 35 and 36, please come to the stage, and it would be like weird music and that kind of weird camera angle, like almost like a BBC sort of like that sort of foggy sort of one dimension camera. I was like, and this was like the most boring thing I've ever seen. Hell, Westminster Dog Show was more exciting. Seriously. And look what we did with it. I personally like Dancing with the Stars. I think it's an amazing show. Leaps and bounds, we did a great thing. Now, would that show have been produced here originally, from the ground up, with no other marker to say that people might be interested? Nope. And especially when it comes to game shows. So that's where you get your Endemol's and you get your Shines and you get all those people. They bring the formats over and they produce it for America. It's extremely difficult to do that the other way around.
Are those the same companies that are handling that production, and there are companies and networks here in America buying the shows?
Oh yeah. Right.
I mean, really, America really does do it better.
Oh.
I mean, hands down. And I'm not just being like, oh,
Well, I'm sure it's also just they invest so much more money that.
They do, but they actually more eyeballs in Europe. Way more people are invested. I mean, there's like 4 channels, at least back then, and people really are interested in like Naked and Afraid. They really are interested in like those kind of shows. People watch them overseas, and here you have to tell people that ballroom dancing is gonna be amazing, and I think they did a great job with it. I mean, they really did. I think Dancing with the Stars is one of my favorite crossover shows, knowing what it came from. Hell, American Idol was even better produced than Dancing with the Stars was. Big Brother, same thing. They're all way better produced. Dancing with the Stars, I'm like, oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
This?
Yeah. And look what it turned into. It's one of my favorites. I'm really passionate about it just because, not that I'm stuck in my own ways. I just think that some things just have never changed. And I do believe that it's really about storytelling. It's about hooking and knowing your audience. And it's about being convicted. I can't begin to tell you how many people have come to me and said, I got this great idea. And I've loved them. And they don't follow through with it. Or they feel like they want that easy win. And honestly, selling a show is extremely difficult. It is unrewarding.
That's why I don't want to do it anymore.
But I also think
now that I have a production company, I don't want to fund that shit.
Yeah, but it's not all about TV shows. It's about entertaining. I really feel like entertaining is what we do. We provide entertainment to people, and that comes in many different forms. At the end of the day, I believe the fundamentals are still the same. And I feel like people lose sight of that sometimes, or we argue about it, or we discuss it. I think healthy discussion is great because it kind of keeps you in check about what works and doesn't work. And I don't have all the answers, and I've been wrong many times. But I do. If you don't discuss it and you don't have that feeling, then you're going to be complacent and you're not going to move forward. And you'll fall into a trap of like, just because you put it on there, that people are going to watch it. And that's not true.
Just because you have the followers and the people, viewing the network doesn't mean that they're going to view that content. Is that what you're saying?
Or those people aren't going to. Just because you put it out there doesn't mean people are going to come in droves to watch it.
Yeah, you got to market it. That's what we're here for.
Yep.
So that is really focusing on, TV especially, and amazing stories. And Ben, you're going to talk about a little bit about, pitching to more online networks. And obviously that's huge right now. They're popping up everywhere in places where you're watching things on your phone. And
no, that's not what I'm going to say. I'm going to say there's no pitch.
There's no pitch.
Just do it.
Explain.
So what are we doing right here? I said I wanted to have a TV show. I want to talk about Halloween 2.0. I want to talk about old school producing. I want to talk about how to get to networks, and I want to have a show. And so I'm doing it, right? I put the same team that is behind American Idol, the same team that's behind Kevin Hart's Never Laugh Aloud is now behind the Vigo show. And we're just doing all the same things that we would have done for them, but we're just doing it on our own. There's no network involved, okay? So yeah, I know how to do it, but that's what I want to do. I want to show everyone how to do it. So what you do first, obviously, you film an episode, right? This podcast is going to be an hour or so long. And so then what we did is we went and we cut out almost, 100 different clips, little baby clips, micro clips. We're going to test them. We're going to see what does well. We're going to post them all over different formats. They're going to be on Instagram. They're going to be on Twitter. And we're going to tweet them to people. We're going to reach into people's DMs and legit, see what they're interested in. Be like, hey, I saw that you worked on this. We're actually giving advice on doing this. And we put the show out. Where does the show live? Well, it can live all over the place, right? So this is a podcast, but I send it to 20 different networks. I also filmed the whole thing. It's going to go on YouTube. It's going to go on Instagram TV. It's going to go on Facebook. It's going to go on several Facebook pages. I'm going to reach out to all my friends, industry. Hey, do you mind just shooting a link to this? Anyone can put out content, right? It's just what level this looks like cable access. This is and we have fire content that's cable access. Some content doesn't need the production value. We're not a singing competition. We're kind of like an educational show, and you don't need the networks.
So when creating content at a level that's not going in and the millions of dollars, how I guess when you're creating content like that, what should be your priority? Is looks and quality of the package important? Should you be focusing more on content and that importance? Because I see people recording content now and it's like, oh, you don't have mics. Your video is not that good. But you still might have something good that you're saying. What level of importance are we placing on things?
I mean, I'm saying don't go out and try to make a competition reality show. We're not going to have Dancing with the Stars, and I'm going to put it out myself. I'm not going to fund that. I can't fund that. Millions of dollars per episode, right? But what I can do is I can bring in all the producers to Dance with the Stars. Does that make any sense? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I also think that you're not just going to put out content just because you want to put out content. I think you want to put out content in hopes that it will stick or people will talk about it. It may grow into something else. I think there is an educated approach to it, which I think that Vigo does really well. You're just not going to talk about planting flowers in your backyard because you have a passion for that. You're talking about things that might be relatable or people might want to listen to and grab a hold of. And what you're saying might actually be beneficial in a bigger thing, like a TV show or a bigger podcast or an online show of some sorts. Some sort of platform might pick it up because there might be more than just one person that likes it. You'll never know who likes it unless you put it out there. And I think that's what Ben is saying. You just put it out there versus waiting for someone to give you an opportunity to put it out there. I think that's where things have changed drastically in the last 5 years, is that you don't have to wait for someone to give you the opportunity to put out that content. You can now put it out there and see what people think. I think it's the other way around now, and I think that's what Ben is referring to, is that why wait? Just put it out there.
Yeah, they're both options. They're both options right now, and I think we're at a very interesting point in time, just like we talked in the last episode, where everything is changing and there's no right or wrong way to do it. They're both. It's like different. We're not fighting each other. They're just two very different ways right now. And no, there's never been more minutes of content watched, so people are still watching both.
How important is production value in this way of creating content and putting content out versus, you're talking about someone who could pick it up as saying, I love the idea, I love this, and let me help you with, creating it and backing it. How important when you start out is production value?
So I think you have to get to the root of why does production value exist, okay? Why does production value exist? Because these big networks and these big buildings have to sell a beautiful, shiny object to brands. Okay? There's this thing called brand safety. Brands don't want to align themselves with content that looks poor, that looks, I don't know, like it was homemade. You know, they are gonna run. They're beautifully produced.
Absolutely.
Commercials have the biggest budgets of any production besides blockbuster films, and a lot of the directors that do films do commercials. Like my buddy Clint just starred in one that was for Visit Vegas, but it was directed by the Twilight director. And so when a brand wants to put their content next to another piece of content, that content in their minds and their corporate minds has to be on par with that ad.
No, and but at a certain point, they can be the ones who invest that secondary money, right? Are they looking for the idea?
So that's why I was saying that the content, this branded content, is not shitty, right?
Yeah.
Like this Top Golf show was well produced, but they funded it just like a network would fund it. You know, I think the big difference between or the two big things are eyeballs and budget. So networks can deliver both to the content creator, and they have certain standards, or you can go on it and do it yourself on your own budget and find your own eyeballs.
Do you think that Top Golf show was created in-house, or do you think someone pitched that to Top Golf and they ran with it?
I would bet $1 million they didn't think of that. What do you think?
I think it's 50-50. I've pitched to NFL with their Play 16. Believe me, NFL can pitch their own shows and come up with their own reason for people to be invested in kids working out or getting exercise for 60 minutes a day. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't need to pitch them that show. And they probably get pitched a million shows like that. If they would have done that, I came up with something that said, okay, here's a viable option, and they would run with it just like the golf thing. Like literally, they would run with something like that.
Oh, but Topgolf, but the point is, like, I would guess that Topgolf, a company that's surely out of middle America, did not say, hey, let's make a competition reality show and run all these target ads. I bet you an agency pitched them. I bet you a production company had this idea, we want to do our own Battle of the Bands. They said, will any network buy it? Maybe, maybe not. So maybe they had success there. And then they said, okay, what about brands? We can do it for slightly cheaper. So then you go to these agencies and these media buying agencies, and they reach out to their Procter and Gambles, and eventually someone says, hey, I think people who would want to golf might also want to do this, watch this show about bands. So let's try it out and let's see how it goes.
I do want to say something though that you had mentioned that, or actually that you brought up, that the quality or the production value, which I think is very subjective in my opinion of what that actually means. I think that should be something explored in future podcasts. I do believe though that if you're out there trying to make your mark or trying to get your product out there or trying to sell something on a very simple level, or you're just trying to put stuff out there that you're really passionate about and hopefully it'll become bigger. I do believe though that in that product, it needs to somehow represent the quality of your work or what your enthusiasm is for it. I think that you could easily say, hey, let's just shoot with the iPhone camera, this thing right here, and like let's throw it out there. It's the same conversation, it's the same people, same everything, but that's not how we're doing it. We want to present something that is like something a little bit more indicative of how we want to present it to you. I do believe there's something to say about at least putting a little bit of yourself or your company behind the product that you're making, even if it's just a pitch.
Well, it shows your investment and it shows your dedication.
It shows what you're capable of, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to people that want to take it to another level.
So
And also, like, I found myself every time we have an argument like this, you know, like, oh, I'm all new internet, you're old TV. I'll say something, then I'll flip-flop it, and I'm like contradicting myself. And it's just how the industry is right now. No one knows what's right. Everyone is trying everything. They're like, this is working. It's working so well. Oh wait, it's not. Oh wait, it is. Oh wait, let's do the old thing again. Oh wait, no, that's dead. It's like it's so relative and so indicative of what is happening in 2018 in Hollywood with the brands, just in this whole space.
And James, we were talking earlier about how like what worked 15, 20 years ago is coming back or needing to come back, I think you said, right?
Oh yeah, at the end of the day, I believe that content is still the reason why we're all in this doing this, is that there's never been at any point in time more need for content. And that varies across the board, but there are so many platforms and avenues for content to be shared. At the end of the day, it all has to be that somebody wants someone to watch what you have to put out there. And as a content provider, I think it's the best time in history, in my opinion, to be in the entertainment business. At the end of the day, to get that product out there, whether you're just putting out a podcast, or you're pitching to a network, or you're pitching your best friend, or you're seeing what sticks out there and hopefully it'll generate interest, you're still, in my opinion, it has not changed since we started doing sizzle reels or putting stuff on tape. You're trying to captivate somebody to take it to another level. And in my opinion, whether it's a sizzle reel, a piece of tape, or a podcast that people gravitate for an hour, you're still doing the same thing. You're trying to get people to pay attention to it. And I don't think that's, in my opinion, it's now, you're now doing, in my opinion, some of the tools and tricks and some of the techniques that we did 20 years ago to get reality TV off the ground. I really feel like the social media, all the different streaming platforms, the way that people are seeing their media and their entertainment is just like the beginning of the wild, wild west of reality TV. It's exactly, in my opinion, I lived it, I'm living it now. There's literally no difference. It is like a world that is ready to be conquered. It's changing, and at the end of the day, you're still trying to get your product seen.
We've talked a lot about pitching content in this episode, talked about how to get it out there. I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this, first timers, are maybe looking at this and feeling, that this is a daunting process. And I want to be able to end with a little bit of inspiration for them. So I'm going to ask you guys, give some inspiration to anyone who is wanting to create content and has an idea and saying, wow, you guys just told me that this is a month upon year process. I'm going to invest a lot of money. I'm not going to make a lot of money in my first project. Give a piece of information and inspiration to them of why they should keep going and push forward.
Just do it. Don't talk about it with your friends forever. Don't try to plan everything. Just take your cell phone, point it at your face, point at whatever you're trying to capture, learn how to edit, go on YouTube, figure it out, and just put stuff out there. That's it.
I'd like to mimic that and say that don't procrastinate. There's never been a time where you don't need someone to put your idea out there. Whatever the case is, you don't know what the outcome is going to be, but you won't know what that journey is going to be like if you never did it. And honestly, now more than ever, if you just do it, whether you know how to do it or not, whether you have a friend or not, whether you know how to do anything, just do it. Because it may lead to your second thing or third or fourth. You'll never know. You'll just sit there and be like, I wish I did it.
Just put stuff out there, because you don't know. Your friend could be friends with me and he could comment on it, and then I'll see it in my feed and be like, whoa, that's an interesting idea. And here I know how to do all this stuff, and we've learned from years and years of experience. But if it was never brought to my attention, how would I know about it? So just get it out there.
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's what you got to do. You got to start out. You just got to create the content, which is what we're doing on the show. We're teaching people a lot. James, thank you so much
Thanks for
coming on. I mean, seriously, the wisdom that you were able to share from your 15, 20 years and being inside the rooms for people to actually know, impeccable.
I think I get to feel every day. Like, we're lucky. We're all super lucky.
No, I think it's an exciting time, and I really, honestly, this is a really good time to be in entertainment, to be entertaining people.
Well, we hope you guys also learned a lot and were able to feel inspired and learn now that it might be a daunting process. It might be an uphill process, but when you get to the top of the mountain, you got the view.
And here's the thing, it's like the first episode, right? Like, we went over so much in the first episode, we went over so much here. We're gonna break all those down eventually. That's my plan for the show.
Yeah.
We're gonna spend episodes on every chunk of things we talked about today, yesterday.
Can I say one last thing?
Absolutely.
And I think it's really important. You don't know what the next hit's going to be. You don't know what people are going to want to see. You don't know. It's really, if you're going to carry that burden on your shoulders, you're doomed. Honestly, the most surprising and amazing things come from when you least expect it. And the biggest hits, the biggest, talked about water cooler moments come from something that people just put it out there, but they did not know what it was going to end up being like. Honestly, just put it out there because you can't control what people are going to watch and what they're going to like.
100%. Fantastic. And with that, we wrap up another episode of The Vigo Show. Again, James, thank you so much for joining us. Ben Ganz, your host, Michael Clouse. We hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, feel inspired. Tell a friend. We want to be able to share this inspiration. We want to be able to share this behind-the-scenes information that you can't get anywhere else. Tell a friend, like, comment, subscribe. Go rate us 5 stars. We'll see you next time.
You truly can't get anywhere else. I looked for so long. I needed it.
Okay.
We're out.